The storm had started quietly, almost in secret, like a whisper across the small town of Minnesota. Snowflakes drifted from the sky, light and delicate, floating down as if they had all the time in the world. People had gone about their day without much worry, thinking it was just another winter afternoon. But as the hours passed, the flakes grew heavier, faster, thicker. The sky turned gray. The winds howled like wolves, and the world outside became buried in white. Far from the center of town, an old country road stretched between two clusters of trees. It was a narrow path, not often used, but some families still relied on it. On that road, a small car struggled against the storm. Inside sat Grandma Linda, a woman in her late 70s with silver hair and a soft face lined with years of kindness. Beside her was her 8-year-old grandson, Michael, whose curious eyes now widened with fear as the car trembled against the snow. "Grandma, I'm cold," Michael whispered, pulling his coat tighter around him. "I know, sweetheart," Linda said gently, trying to sound calm even as her own hands shook on the steering wheel. "We're almost home. Just hold on." But the truth was, Linda was scared. She had lived in Minnesota all her life and seen many snowstorms, but something about this one felt different. The wind was too strong, the snow too blinding. The road ahead was disappearing before her eyes, swallowed by the blizzard. She could hardly see a few feet in front of her. She pressed the gas, but the tires spun helplessly on the icy ground. The car groaned, shuddered, and finally came to a stop. No matter how many times she tried to start it again, the wheels only whined, sinking deeper into the snow. Panic began to creep into her chest. "Oh, dear Lord," she murmured under her breath. Michael's small voice trembled. "Grandma, what's happening?" "The car, it's stuck," Linda admitted softly, trying not to frighten him more. "But don't worry, we'll figure it out." She reached over to hold his hand. His little fingers were cold, and it broke her heart. She thought about her daughter, Michael's mother, who was waiting at home, probably pacing the floor by now, watching the clock and praying for their safe return. The wind screamed against the car, rocking it slightly. Snow piled higher around them, as if the earth itself was closing them inside. Linda's heart pounded. She knew the dangers of blizzards, frostbite, hypothermia, even worse. If no one came down this road soon, they could be trapped. Miles away, in a small, worn-down apartment on the edge of town, Marcus Brown zipped up his thick winter coat. Marcus was a tall man in his 30s with broad shoulders and kind eyes that carried both strength and weariness. Life had not been easy for him. He worked odd jobs, whatever he could find. Construction in the summer, warehouse shifts in the winter. Money was always tight, but he kept going. His mother had taught him long ago, "Marcus, the world may be rough, but never let it take away your kindness." That evening, Marcus had been walking home from a late shift when the storm worsened. The bus service had been canceled, and most people had rushed indoors. But Marcus knew shortcuts through the back roads, and though the snow bit at his skin, he pushed forward, head down, determined to get home. As he trudged along the lonely road between the trees, he noticed something strange. In the blur of white, a faint glow flickered ahead, a pair of headlights dim and fading. He squinted and realized a car was stuck in the snow. His instincts told him to keep moving. After all, who would expect him to stop in such weather? But something tugged at his heart. What if someone was inside? What if they needed help? Marcus adjusted his scarf, tightened his gloves, and pushed through the snow toward the car. The closer he came, the more he could see. The vehicle tilted slightly, half buried, the engine struggling weakly before falling silent. He knocked on the window, and inside he saw her, an elderly woman with frightened eyes, and a child pressed close beside her. Linda jumped when she saw a figure at the window. For a moment, fear clutched her heart. Out here in the middle of a storm, a stranger could mean danger. But then she met his eyes. Through the frost and glass, she saw not menace but concern. Marcus pulled at the door, and with effort, Linda managed to open it just a crack against the snow. The freezing wind rushed inside, and Michael whimpered, burying his face in her arm. "You folks okay?" Marcus shouted over the wind. Linda's voice shook. "The car, it's stuck. The engine won't start. We don't know what to do." Marcus glanced at the child, then back at her. He didn't hesitate. "We can't stay here. You'll freeze. Come on, I'll help you." Linda looked at him, uncertain. Trusting strangers was not something she had ever done easily, but in that moment she felt she had no choice. She nodded slowly, All right. Marcus reached in, lifting Michael into his strong arms. The boy shivered but clung to him, sensing safety. Linda followed, clutching her purse tightly, her legs weak in the deep snow. The cold cut through them like knives. The storm showed no mercy, and the snow reached nearly to their knees. Marcus moved steadily, his arm shielding Michael, his other hand guiding Linda forward. Where are we going? Linda asked breathlessly. My place isn't far, Marcus replied, his words muffled by the wind. Just a little farther down this road. Every step was a battle, but Marcus kept them moving. He thought of his own mother, long gone now, and how she would have wanted someone to help her if she had been in this woman's place. He thought of the child, too young to fight against the storm on his own. That thought alone gave him strength. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, the faint outline of a building appeared through the blizzard. It was Marcus's small apartment complex, old and worn, but standing firm against the storm. He guided them inside, where the hallway lights flickered but the air was warm compared to the outside. Linda collapsed into a chair just inside the entrance, her chest heaving. Michael leaned against Marcus, still trembling but safe. Thank you, Linda whispered, her voice breaking with relief. Marcus gave a small nod, pulling off his gloves. You're safe now. That's what matters. In that moment, 3 lives had crossed paths by chance, tied together by a storm no one had expected. None of them knew yet how deeply this night would change their futures. For now, they were only strangers brought together by the cruelty of a blizzard, and the courage of one man who chose to stop and help. Inside the small, warm apartment, the storm outside seemed even more menacing. The wind rattled the windows and howled like a wild animal, a constant reminder of the danger that still raged outside. Marcus guided Linda and Michael to a couch near the heater. Michael, still trembling, sat quietly, clutching a small blanket Marcus handed him. Linda sank onto the couch, pressing her hands together as she tried to calm herself. You both need to warm up, Marcus said gently. You've been out in that storm too long. You could have gotten frostbite if we stayed out there much longer. Linda nodded, grateful for his presence. Her hands were pale and stiff, evidence of how close they had come to disaster. She looked at the man who had risked his own safety to help strangers, and she felt something she had not felt in years. Pure, unguarded gratitude. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. You don't have to, Marcus replied with a small smile. I just did what anyone would hope someone would do for their family. That's all. Michael peeked over the edge of the blanket. Are we going to be okay? His voice was small, almost lost in the sound of the storm. Marcus knelt beside him. You're safe now, buddy. I promise. No storm can hurt you in here. The boy nodded, still shivering, but a sense of calm was slowly returning. Marcus glanced toward the door, worried about the night ahead. He knew the storm would not ease soon and roads were dangerous. Leaving them to return home immediately was not an option. For now, safety and warmth were all that mattered. As Michael began to sip hot chocolate that Marcus had prepared, Linda studied the man carefully. He was tall, with strong shoulders, but there was kindness in his eyes. She could sense that his life had not been easy, yet here he was, helping strangers without hesitation. She wanted to say more, to share her appreciation, but words felt small compared to what he had done. Marcus, she said finally, you saved our lives. I can't tell you how much that means. Marcus looked down, his face serious for a moment. You don't have to thank me, just promise me you'll be careful from now on. These storms aren't jokes. They can be deadly, Linda nodded. I promise. I will. The hours passed slowly. The storm outside continued its furious dance, but inside Marcus's apartment, the warmth began to soothe their nerves. Michael curled up under the blanket, his eyes growing heavy as exhaustion from the cold overtook his fear. Linda sipped tea, her hands still shaking, but her heart filled with relief. Marcus watched them quietly, thinking about how fragile life could be. One wrong turn, one misstep, and the outcome could have been very different. He remembered walking toward their car, unsure if he would even reach them safely. But he had acted without hesitation, guided by instinct and compassion. That simple decision had changed everything. Suddenly, Michael stirred. Grandma, will we be okay tomorrow? Linda smiled softly, brushing his hair back. Yes, sweetheart. We're safe now. That's what matters. Marcus cleared his throat. You're lucky the storm caught you near my road. Many people get stuck in places like that, and it can get dangerous fast. Sometimes help doesn't come in time. Linda's expression turned thoughtful, almost somber. I never realized how serious it could be. I've driven in snowstorms before, but this was different. I was scared, Marcus. I didn't know if we'd make it. Marcus nodded slowly. Fear is natural. It keeps you alert. But courage is acting even when you're scared. You acted. You kept Michael safe until I arrived. That counts too. For the first time that night, Linda felt a spark of calm wash over her. She wasn't just grateful for his help. She felt a deep sense of admiration for his courage and kindness. It was rare to meet someone who acted selflessly, without thought for reward. Marcus, feeling the tension ease, decided to share a little about himself. I grew up around here. Life hasn't been easy, but my mom always told me one thing. Marcus, help when you can. One day, someone's kindness will come back to you in ways you can't imagine. I guess tonight was one of those nights where that lesson mattered. Linda listened carefully, sensing the weight of his words. There was humility in his voice, but also strength. She felt a connection forming, not just because he saved her and Michael, but because of who he was as a person. As the storm continued outside, Marcus realized it was going to be a long night. Roads would be blocked, and it would be unsafe to leave until morning. He offered them a room for the night, insisting that safety was more important than anything else. Linda agreed, grateful for his generosity. After settling in, Marcus prepared some blankets and extra clothing. Michael giggled softly as he tried on a thick pair of Marcus's socks, slipping them over his own small feet. The sight brought a smile to Marcus's face, easing some of the tension he had carried all night. Later, as they sat by the heater, Linda asked quietly, Marcus, why do you do this? Help strangers like us? Marcus paused. He didn't answer immediately, choosing his words carefully. Because someone helped me once when I really needed it. I can't forget that. And maybe, I just believe the world is better if people help each other, even when it's hard, even when it's risky. Linda felt a lump in her throat. She realized how rare it was to meet someone with such pure heart. In a world that often seemed selfish and hurried, Marcus's actions were a reminder of the good that still existed. The night grew deeper, and the storm outside showed no sign of stopping. Yet inside that small apartment, warmth and safety surrounded them. For the first time since the blizzard began, Linda and Michael felt a sense of security. Marcus remained vigilant, keeping an eye on the heater, making sure they were comfortable but never imposing. His calm presence was as reassuring as the walls around them. Finally, Michael's eyes closed in sleep, exhausted from the day's terror. Linda leaned back, finally allowing herself to rest, her mind racing with thoughts of what could have happened if Marcus hadn't come. She had never imagined that a simple drive home could turn into a life-threatening ordeal. Marcus sat quietly, watching them, thinking about the unpredictable nature of life. One storm, one decision, one moment of courage. It had changed the course of the evening, perhaps even the lives of all three of them. He knew he had done the right thing, but he also realized that sometimes acts of kindness could have far-reaching consequences, far beyond what anyone could see. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but inside the little apartment was a haven. The warmth, the shared quiet, and the feeling of safety made the terrifying events of the day feel distant, almost unreal. And yet they all knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for now, they were together, alive and safe. Marcus finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. Tonight he had saved lives, not for recognition, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. And that thought, quietly echoing in the warmth of the apartment, was enough to give him a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, the storm had finally begun to ease. The relentless wind had calmed and the snow fell softly now, like a gentle blanket covering the town. Outside, the world was quiet, almost surreal, as if the storm had left behind a strange peace. Marcus woke early, careful not to disturb Michael, who was still sleeping soundly on the couch. Linda had stayed up later than he had, but even she now sat quietly in a chair, wrapped in a blanket, watching the soft snow fall through the window. "Good morning," Marcus said softly, smiling as he entered the living room with a tray of breakfast he had prepared. 2 cups of hot cocoa, a plate of scrambled eggs, and toast sat neatly on the tray. Linda looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Good morning, Marcus. You didn't have to do this." I know, he replied, setting the tray on the small table. But I wanted to. You both need to eat, and after last night, breakfast seems important. Michael stirred, rubbing his eyes. Is it morning already? He asked sleepily. Yes, buddy, Marcus said, lifting him gently. You rested well. Now let's have some breakfast before we figure out what comes next. As they ate, Linda found herself talking more freely than she had since the storm began. She shared small details about her life, about Michael's school, and even about her late husband, whose memory still lived in every corner of her home. Marcus listened quietly, offering kind nods and occasional words of encouragement. He didn't push questions, but his presence alone made her feel comfortable, safe enough to open her heart a little. You know, Linda said softly after a pause, I keep thinking about last night, about what could have happened. If you hadn't come. Her voice trailed off, emotion choking her words. Marcus shook his head gently. Don't think about that. It doesn't help anyone. The important thing is that you're safe. You're here, Michael's here, and that's what matters. Michael, now eating toast with more focus, looked up. Grandma? Can we see him again? I mean, Marcus? Linda smiled at her grandson. Of course, sweetheart. He's our friend now. Someone who helped us when we needed it most. Marcus felt a warmth spread through him at the child's words. Helping others had always been important to him, but moments like this, when the people you saved genuinely appreciated you, were rare. He realized that sometimes kindness could build connections stronger than blood, built on trust, gratitude, and simple human decency. After breakfast, Marcus helped them gather their things. Snow still covered the roads, but he knew that driving slowly and carefully they could make it home safely. Linda's car had to be left behind for now, buried under a thick layer of snow, but that didn't matter. Safety was the priority. Thank you again, Marcus, Linda said as they stepped outside into the crisp morning air. I don't know how we could ever repay you. You don't have to repay me, Marcus said with a smile. Just take care of each other and maybe, someday help someone else the way I helped you. That's enough. Michael hugged Marcus tightly, his small arms barely wrapping around him. Thank you, he whispered, his voice full of genuine admiration. You saved us. I'll never forget you. Marcus patted his back gently. I'll remember you too, buddy. Stay brave, okay? As they walked toward Linda's car, Marcus thought about how quickly life could change. One moment, everything seemed normal. The next, everything could be in danger. And yet it was also in moments like these that humanity shone brightest, when strangers became saviors, when courage outweighed fear. The journey to Linda's home was slow but safe. Snowplows had cleared the main roads, but minor streets were still difficult to navigate. Marcus walked with them until they reached their neighborhood, making sure the elderly woman and child were not alone in unfamiliar territory. Finally, they arrived at Linda's house, a small but cozy home with a garden blanketed in white. She unlocked the door, and the warmth from inside welcomed them immediately. Michael rushed inside, shedding layers of clothing and laughing as he shook off the snow. Linda followed, carefully closing the door behind them. Marcus lingered by the doorway. You're safe now. That's what matters, he said, glancing at them one last time. Linda's eyes glistened with tears, but she smiled. Please, come in for a moment. We want to thank you properly. Reluctantly, Marcus stepped inside. The scent of warm coffee and baked bread filled the air. Linda led him to a chair while Michael busied himself with toys. I don't know how to say this, Linda began, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. But you didn't just save us from the storm. You gave us hope. You reminded us that there are good people left in this world. I can't thank you enough. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. It's okay. Really. I just did what I thought anyone would do. Not everyone would, Linda replied firmly. Most people would have kept walking. But you risked yourself for a stranger, for a child. That's more than courage, it's something rare, something beautiful. Marcus looked at her, humbled. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. But I don't need anything in return. I just hope you remember to be careful next time. Linda laughed softly, the sound bright and warm. Oh, we will. Believe me, Michael and I will never forget this day, and we will never forget you, Marcus. For a long moment, the room was quiet except for the soft crackling of the fireplace. It was a quiet moment of connection. 3 people brought together by chance, by danger, and now by gratitude. Marcus realized that sometimes acts of kindness left marks far deeper than anyone expected. Michael approached him, holding a small drawing he had made during breakfast. "Here," he said shyly. "It's for you." Marcus took the drawing carefully. It was simple. Snow falling, a car stuck in the snow, and a tall man helping a grandma and child. But it captured the moment perfectly. He smiled, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. "This is amazing," he said sincerely. "I'll keep it forever." Linda placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You deserve to keep it. And you deserve to know that you made a difference in our lives. Not everyone can say that." Marcus nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. Life had been hard, often unfair, and moments of genuine appreciation were rare. Yet here, in this small living room, he felt seen, valued, and respected, not for what he had, but for what he gave. The day passed slowly. Linda prepared a warm lunch. Michael played quietly, and Marcus helped them with small tasks, making sure everything was comfortable and safe. Outside, the storm had left the town white and silent. But inside, there was laughter, conversation, and a quiet sense of relief. As the afternoon sun began to peek through the clouds, Linda looked at Marcus. "You know, I think you've changed our lives. Not just because you saved us, but because you showed us what kindness really is. We will always remember that." Marcus smiled softly, a little embarrassed by the praise. "I just did what I had to. But thank you truly." And in that small, quiet home, amidst the lingering chill of a winter storm, a bond had formed, one built on trust, gratitude, and the simple truth that even in the harshest of times, human kindness could shine brightly. The days following the storm were calm in the town. But for Marcus, life returned to its usual rhythm, a rhythm that was often harsh and unforgiving. While Linda and Michael were safely back in their home, sharing the story of how he had saved them with friends and neighbors, Marcus went back to his small apartment and the reality of his own struggles. Marcus lived alone in a modest apartment on the edge of town. It was warm enough but bare, with only a few pieces of furniture and the essentials he needed for daily life. Money was tight, as it often was, and he worked long hours at construction sites or temporary jobs just to make ends meet. Some days he worried about paying rent. Other days he worried about food, bills, and the simple fact that life seemed to demand more than he could always give. Despite these challenges, Marcus had never let his struggles harden him. He believed in helping others, in kindness, and in staying true to his principles even when the world felt unfair. But sometimes, after long days of work and worry, the weight of his own life pressed down hard. The rescue during the blizzard had been heroic, but it had also reminded him that his own life was fragile, and that he was not immune to the difficulties of the world. One morning, after working a night shift at the warehouse, Marcus returned home exhausted. The apartment was silent, as always, the only sound the soft hum of the heater. He dropped his backpack on the floor, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes for a moment. His body ached from work, his mind ached from worry, and yet he could not stop thinking about Linda and Michael. He remembered the fear in their eyes during the blizzard, the relief when he reached them, and the gratitude in their voices the next morning. It had been a moment of pure human connection, one that made everything else in his life seem small, but at the same time, it reminded him of the distance between the world he wanted to live in and the world he actually faced every day. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, looking out at the street still covered in snow. He thought about the nights he had spent alone, the meals he had skipped, the long walks through the cold just to make it to work. Helping Linda and Michael had been easy in a way because it was instinctive. But living day to day, surviving, keeping hope alive, it was far more difficult. Later that week, Marcus found himself walking through town, carrying tools to a job site. The sun was shining now, reflecting off the snow, and the air was crisp but fresh. People greeted him as he passed, though most didn't know his story. Some had heard rumors about the man who had rescued a grandmother and her grandson from the storm, but many had not. Marcus didn't seek recognition. He had done it because it was right. But hearing the whispers, seeing the small nods of respect, made him feel both proud and uneasy. He thought about Linda, about the warmth in her eyes, and the sincere gratitude she had shown. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. Maybe the kindness he had shown would ripple outward, bringing more than just gratitude. maybe even some small blessing for himself. Yet, reality was never far behind. After the job, Marcus returned to his apartment to find a stack of bills waiting. One notice demanded payment for electricity. Another reminded him of overdue rent. The struggle to survive was constant, and while he had helped others in need, he often wondered when someone would help him. It was not self-pity that troubled him. It was the recognition of how life often rewarded the brave with struggle, not comfort. That evening, Marcus sat at his small kitchen table, running calculations in his mind. He had enough for the next few days, but not much more. Still, he thought about Linda and Michael. They were safe, warm, and happy. He smiled at the thought. In the midst of his difficulties, he realized that small acts of kindness had a value far beyond money or recognition. They gave life meaning, even when life itself was hard. Later that night, Marcus received a knock at the door. Surprised, he opened it to find a neighbor, a kind older man named Mr. Thompson, who lived down the hall. Mr. Thompson had heard about Marcus's heroism during the blizzard and had come to check on him. "I heard what you did," Mr. Thompson said warmly, "saving that grandmother and child. That was brave, son. Not many people would do what you did." Marcus shook his head. "I didn't do it for praise, I just couldn't leave them out there. It's what anyone should do." Mr. Thompson smiled. "Maybe, but the world doesn't always see it that way. People like you deserve more than just recognition. They deserve help. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Marcus thanked him quietly, feeling a small warmth in his heart. Even in the midst of his struggles, he realized that human connection was still possible. It was rare, but moments like these reminded him that life was not all hardship. Small gestures, small kindnesses, they mattered. That week, Marcus also thought more about Linda and Michael. He wondered how they were doing, if the story of their rescue had become a memory they would share for years to come. He had rescued them physically, but in many ways, he had also rescued himself from isolation, from doubt, from the relentless weight of his own life. Though he faced struggles still, Marcus began to see a pattern forming, a realization that even amidst hardship, moments of courage and compassion could illuminate the darkest days. The blizzard had been terrifying, but it had also revealed something profound, that even in the most desperate moments, humanity could shine. One evening, as Marcus prepared for another long shift, he received a call from Linda. Hearing her voice brought a sense of relief and joy he had not anticipated. She spoke softly, telling him that Michael had drawn another picture, this time of all three of them together smiling in the snow. She laughed lightly, her voice carrying warmth. "Marcus," she said, "we can never thank you enough. You didn't just save our lives, you showed us hope. And I hope you know that your life matters just as much as anyone else's." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He had never considered that people like him, people struggling every day, could be seen in such a light. He smiled softly. "Thank you, Linda. That means more than you know." As he hung up, Marcus looked out at the quiet street outside his window. Snow still lingered, but the world felt less harsh now. He had faced danger, fear, and exhaustion, yet he had also discovered something extraordinary: the power of compassion, gratitude, and human connection. In the following days, Marcus continued his work, continued his life with all its struggles, but he carried a new sense of purpose. He knew that life could be unpredictable, but he also knew that kindness could create ripples that reached far beyond the immediate moment. Even unseen, even unacknowledged acts of courage could shape the future. And in Marcus's heart, a quiet hope began to grow, a hope that life, no matter how difficult, could hold unexpected blessings, moments of gratitude, and the possibility of change. A week had passed since the blizzard, and life in the small town had slowly returned to normal. The streets were clear, shops reopened, and people went about their routines. But for Marcus, the memory of the storm lingered, not as fear, but as a reminder of the fragile thread that connected all lives. His days continued much as before: long hours at the warehouse, walking through the cold to reach job sites, and returning to his small apartment to rest before doing it all again. Yet beneath the surface, something had shifted. The gratitude he had received from Linda and Michael stayed with him, warming him in ways that money or comfort never could. One morning, Marcus was unloading crates at the warehouse when a man approached him. The man was tall, well-dressed, with a clipboard in hand and a professional yet friendly demeanor. "Marcus Brown?" he asked. "Yes," Marcus replied cautiously, wiping his hands on his jacket. "I'm from the local news station," the man explained. "We've heard about your actions during the blizzard. You saved a grandmother and her grandson when no one else could. We want to feature your story." Marcus froze, unsure what to say. Recognition had never been his goal. He had acted instinctively out of concern for others, never expecting praise or attention. Yet now here was someone offering both. I don't know," he said slowly. "I was just doing what anyone should do." The man nodded. "I understand, but people need to know about this. They need to hear that bravery and kindness still exist in the world. This story, it could inspire many." Marcus hesitated, then agreed. If his story could encourage others to help when it mattered most, perhaps it was worth sharing. That afternoon, the news crew arrived at his apartment. They were polite, professional, and careful not to disrupt his space. Cameras, lights, and microphones were set up, but Marcus's focus remained steady. He spoke quietly about the night of the blizzard, about the fear in Linda and Michael's eyes, and about the simple decision to help them. "I didn't think," Marcus said, his voice calm but sincere, "that it would make a difference in the world. I just couldn't leave them there. That's all anyone would do if they could." The reporter smiled warmly. "Sometimes, Marcus, that's exactly what makes the difference. Your actions remind us all of the importance of compassion, courage, and selflessness. That matters more than you know." The segment aired later that evening, and almost immediately responses poured in. Messages from strangers, local businesses, even community leaders flooded his phone. People praised him, thanked him, and offered support in ways Marcus had never expected. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly seen, not just for what he could do, but for who he was. Among the messages, one stood out. It was from Linda, simple and heartfelt. "Marcus, we never imagined your life could be touched by so many because of what you did for us. You deserve all the recognition and kindness that comes your way. Thank you again for saving our lives." Marcus read her words again and again, feeling a warmth that filled the emptiness he had sometimes felt. The storm, the fear, the exhaustion, all of it had led to this moment. He had acted out of instinct, yet the world now recognized his bravery. Days later, Marcus received another surprise. A local foundation, dedicated to helping hardworking citizens in need, reached out. They had seen the news segment and wanted to assist him with financial support, access to better tools for work, and even educational opportunities if he wished to pursue them. Marcus was overwhelmed. He had spent years struggling silently, often wondering if life would ever ease its pressure. And now, because of a single act of courage, doors were opening, doors he had long thought would remain closed. One afternoon, Linda and Michael came to visit him. Linda held a small envelope, smiling. "Marcus, we wanted to do something for you. It's not much, but it's our way of showing gratitude beyond words." Marcus shook his head. "You've already given me so much. Seeing you and Michael safe, that's enough." Linda pressed the envelope into his hands. "Sometimes, Marcus, it's okay to accept help. You gave us hope when we were scared. Let us give something back." Inside the envelope was a check, modest but meaningful, and a heartfelt letter from Michael, who had written carefully, "Dear Marcus, thank you for saving me and Grandma. You are brave and I will always remember you. I hope you are happy and safe. Love, Michael." Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. He had never expected such gestures. For years he had believed that life was about survival alone, about doing what you must and carrying on. Yet now he understood something he had long forgotten. When you give with a pure heart, life often finds a way to return that kindness in ways you never imagined. Word of his heroism continued to spread. Marcus was invited to speak at schools about courage and helping others. Children listened intently as he shared the story of the storm, emphasizing that bravery wasn't about strength alone, but about choosing to act when someone needed help. Parents nodded in agreement, some moved to tears, realizing the depth of humanity in one person's actions. Through it all, Marcus remained humble. He never sought fame, recognition, or reward. He simply hoped that the message reached people's hearts, that children and adults alike would remember that kindness mattered. And in the quiet moments when he returned home after long days of work or speaking engagements, he would think of Linda and Michael and smile, knowing that one night of courage had forever changed the course of multiple lives. Marcus also began to consider his own future. For the first time in years, he felt possibilities opening up, opportunities to pursue better work, improve his living situation, and even further his education no longer seemed distant dreams. The storm, terrifying as it had been, had inadvertently become the catalyst for a turning point in his life. One evening, after a long day, Marcus sat by his window, watching the sun set over the town. The sky was painted in soft shades of pink and orange, reflecting on the snow below. He thought about the journey he had been on, the blizzard, the fear, the rescue, the gratitude, and now the recognition and support. Life had been unpredictable, harsh at times, but it had also proven that goodness could shine through even the darkest storms. As he reflected, Marcus realized something profound. Courage and kindness were not just about grand gestures. They were about the choices made in the moment. It was about stepping forward when others stayed behind, about giving hope when hope seemed lost, and about believing that even the smallest act could have a ripple effect far beyond imagination. Marcus smiled quietly to himself. Life had changed in ways he could never have predicted, and while he knew struggles would continue, life was never free of challenges. He felt ready to face the future, ready to embrace opportunities, and ready to continue helping others no matter the cost. In that moment, Marcus understood fully that one night during a blizzard, a simple act of courage had done more than save lives. It had set in motion a chain of events that would transform his life forever, reminding everyone involved that bravery, kindness, and compassion were forces capable of shaping destinies in ways unimaginable. Spring arrived slowly in the town, melting the last of the snow and bringing warmth back to the streets. The air smelled fresh and life moved with renewed energy. Marcus had noticed the change not only outside but also within himself. The storm that had once brought terror and fear now felt like a distant memory, replaced by gratitude, hope, and new opportunities. Life had changed for Marcus in ways he could never have imagined. The recognition from the news, the support from the local foundation, and the letters from Linda and Michael had created a new chapter in his life. For the first time, he saw a future filled with possibilities, a life where he could grow, dream, and continue helping others without being held back by constant struggle. One morning, Marcus woke early, as he always did, but instead of rushing to a job, he sat by the window with a cup of coffee and smiled at the town below. Children played outside, parents laughed, and neighbors waved at each other. The memory of the blizzard seemed distant, almost unreal. Yet Marcus knew that the lessons from that night would stay with him forever. Courage, kindness, and selflessness could transform lives, not just for those who received help, but also for those who gave it. That afternoon there was a knock at the door. Marcus opened it to find Linda and Michael standing there, holding a small basket of flowers. Michael grinned from ear to ear. "Hi, Marcus. We wanted to come see you," he said. Linda smiled warmly. "We just wanted to thank you again. You've given us more than we could ever repay, and we wanted to celebrate not just what you did, but who you are." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He invited them inside, and they spent the afternoon together, sharing stories, laughter, and tea. Michael proudly showed him new drawings he had made, one even depicting Marcus as a hero in a snowstorm. Marcus laughed softly, touched by the child's imagination and sincerity. "You know," Linda said as they all sat together, "you didn't just save us from the storm. You saved our hearts. You reminded us that kindness still exists, that courage still lives in people, and you've changed all of our lives forever." Marcus shook his head. "I just did what I thought was right. I didn't expect anything in return." Linda reached over and held his hand. "Sometimes, Marcus, the world does notice. Sometimes it rewards those who deserve it most, and we want you to know you deserve every bit of happiness and support that comes your way." That evening, Marcus received another unexpected surprise. A representative from the local construction company that had been hiring temporary workers reached out to offer him a full-time position with benefits. The foundation that had supported him had also arranged for a small grant to help improve his apartment and provide tools for work. Marcus felt a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Life had offered him stability and recognition he had never imagined. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's routine changed in a positive way. He still worked hard, But he no longer worried constantly about making ends meet. He could save a little each month, plan for the future, and even consider taking classes to improve his skills. Most importantly, he carried a new sense of purpose, the knowledge that his actions mattered, and that helping others could create a ripple effect far beyond the moment. One afternoon, as Marcus walked to the local park, he noticed children playing near a small fountain. Some laughed, others built small snowmen from the last patches of lingering snow. He remembered Michael, the little boy he had saved, and smiled. That night during the blizzard had been terrifying, but it had also shown him the power of human connection, the strength of courage, and the importance of compassion. Linda's voice rang in his memory. "You've changed our lives forever." And now Marcus realized, with a deep and quiet certainty, that his life had been changed too. A few weeks later, the town held a small ceremony at the community center to honor Marcus. Local leaders, neighbors, and even school children attended. Linda and Michael were there front and center, proudly smiling as Marcus was presented with a certificate of recognition for his bravery and selflessness during the blizzard. Marcus stood on the small stage, looking at the faces around him. Some were smiling, some teary-eyed, all showing respect and admiration. He cleared his throat and spoke simply. "I didn't do this for recognition," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I helped because it was the right thing to do. But seeing all of you here, knowing that people care and knowing that my actions mattered, it's more than I could have ever hoped for. Thank you." The crowd applauded warmly. Linda whispered to him, "You've inspired all of us, Marcus. Never forget that." Michael, standing beside her, handed Marcus a small drawing he had made, depicting the three of them walking through the snow together. Later that evening, Marcus returned to his apartment, sitting quietly by the window as the sun set. He thought about the journey he had been on, from the night of the blizzard to this moment of recognition and hope. Life had been hard, sometimes cruel, but he realized now that courage and kindness had the power to change everything. He remembered the fear in Linda and Michael's eyes, the cold biting at their skin, and the desperation of the moment. He also remembered the warmth, gratitude, and humanity that followed. That night had tested him, but it had also revealed the best of him. And now the world had taken notice, giving him opportunities, support, and most importantly, a renewed belief in the goodness of life. In the days that followed, Marcus continued to live his life with the same humility and kindness that had guided him through the storm. He volunteered when he could, helped neighbors, and shared his story with children at local schools, teaching them that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Through it all, Linda and Michael remained close. They visited often, sharing meals, stories, and laughter. Their bond, formed in the harshest of circumstances, grew stronger with each passing day. Marcus realized that family is not always defined by blood, but by love, trust, and shared experiences. One evening, Marcus sat in his apartment holding the small drawing Michael had given him. He thought about the blizzard, about the fear, the courage, and the kindness that had carried them through. And he understood something deeply. One act of bravery, one decision to help, could ripple outward and transform lives, both the lives of those you save and your own. Marcus smiled quietly. Life had changed forever. He was no longer just surviving. He was thriving, filled with hope, purpose, and the knowledge that even in the darkest storms humanity could shine. And as he looked out the window at the quiet town, now washed in the soft glow of spring, he felt a peace he had never known, a peace born from courage, compassion, and the understanding that he had made a difference. That night, Marcus went to bed with a sense of fulfillment. He knew challenges would still come, as they always did, but he was ready. Ready to face them with courage, with kindness, and with the knowledge that one person's actions could truly change the world. One life, one heart, one moment at a time. And so, the man who had walked through a blizzard to save a grandmother and child found that his own life had been forever changed, not just by the storm, not just by recognition or support, but by the simple, timeless truth that courage, kindness, and selflessness can transform even the most ordinary life into something extraordinary. Marcus had stepped into a storm that night and emerged not only as a hero to others, but as a hero to himself. And in that heroism, he discovered a life filled with hope, connection, and the limitless possibilities of a future shaped by goodness.